Today's headline: Trey Hendrickson is back in the spotlight, and not just for his pass rushing dominance. A fresh report has just dropped, and it's stirring up the conversation around his contract status with the Bengals. Let's break down what's really going on and why this could signal a major shift in Cincinnati's offseason strategy. But before we dive into the latest news, do us a quick favor. Subscribe to the channel, smash that like button, and don't forget to hit the bell icon so you never miss a Bengals update. All right, let's get into it. NFL insider Jeremy Fowler just reported that Cincinnati and Trey Hendrickson have officially resumed contract talks. That alone is a big deal. Why? Because for weeks, the silence suggested tension and possibly a standoff. But now, with the Bengals re-engaging, it tells us something important. This team wants Trey Hendrickson in stripes this season and beyond. While full details are still under wraps, the fact that both sides are talking again, that's progress. And for a defense that leans heavily on Hendrickson's relentless pressure off the edge, this is more than just paperwork. It's about protecting one of Cincinnati's core strengths. Stick around. We'll keep unpacking what this means for the team, the locker room, and the bigger picture for 2025. Just a few weeks ago, Trey Hendrickson didn't hold back. Whether it was on national shows like Pat McAfee or through top-tier insiders like Adam Schefter, the message was loud and clear. The line of communication between him and the Bengals had broken down. Trey was frustrated. He showed up to OTAs not to participate but to send a message, to let the world know something wasn't right behind the scenes. But now, things are shifting. According to ESPN's Jeremy Fowler, that cold silence has turned into an active conversation. The Bengals and Hendrickson are talking again. That alone raises one major question: who blinked first? Was it the Bengals finally realizing they needed to come back to the table and revisit their earlier offer? Maybe the $28 million figure wasn't going to cut it long term, and they knew it. Or was it Hendrickson himself, deciding that if things were going to move forward, he had to re-engage? Whichever side made the first move, one thing is certain: both now see the value in staying connected, and that speaks volumes about how crucial Hendrickson remains to Cincinnati's future plans. Now, let's bring in a quote that still echoes through the front office. Duke Tobin, the Bengals director of player personnel, spoke at the NFL Combine earlier this year and made it crystal clear: "We want Trey on this football team. He's under contract, and we believe in what he brings, not just now, but in the years ahead. His best football isn't behind him." Tobin's confidence wasn't forced. It sounded genuine. And if there's one thing that should matter to Bengals fans, it's that the front office still sees Trey Hendrickson as a cornerstone, not a player on the decline. This contract situation, it's not just about numbers, it's about keeping one of Cincinnati's most dominant defensive forces right where he belongs, chasing quarterbacks in orange and black. Let's be honest, Duke Tobin has taken some heat over the years. Some fans have questioned his moves, his timing, and even his vision. But take a step back and look at the track record. Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, all cornerstone players, all brought in under Tobin's watch. So when he speaks on a player like Trey Hendrickson, it's worth paying attention. Now sure, Bengals fans have every right to ask, why is this taking so long? Hendrickson's still without a restructured deal, and time is ticking. But even with no contract in place yet, one thing seems clear: getting this done is a top priority in Cincinnati's front office. The challenge? It's the price tag. Trey Hendrickson's camp reportedly wants numbers approaching what guys like Myles Garrett are making, $35 to $40 million per year. And while Hendrickson has the production to argue for it, leading the league in sacks last year with 17.5, the Bengals aren't Cleveland. They're trying to build a complete roster, not just pay stars. Still, don't be fooled. Cincinnati absolutely wants to keep him. That's not a new revelation. They've wanted that since the final whistle of the 2024 season, but wanting it and affording it are two different things. The next big question: will Hendrickson report to training camp? He already skipped mandatory minicamp, which cost him over $100,000 in fines. If he stays away from camp 2, the tension rises and fast. But if he shows up, that could be the first real step toward a deal. It's a tough situation to navigate. A star player, still elite, but approaching 30, wanting elite money. On the other side, a front office trying to keep the roster balanced, the cap stable, and the locker room unified. Trey Hendrickson is at the center of it all. And what happens next could define the tone for the Bengals' 2025 season. Let's be real, Trey Hendrickson isn't just chasing sacks this offseason, he's chasing clarity. After eating a $100,000 fine for skipping mandatory minicamp, you have to wonder if conversations in the Hendrickson household are shifting. Maybe it's less about proving a point now, and more about securing a future. Maybe he's looking at his family and saying, it's time to find middle ground. And for the Bengals, the door is open. Negotiations are happening. That alone is a step forward, but the biggest question still hangs in the air. What kind of deal is actually on the table? Here's where it gets complicated. The edge rusher market is broken, and Cincinnati is stuck trying to fix it without overpaying. Everyone knows Myles Garrett is an elite talent. No one's arguing that, but when players like Danielle Hunter are pulling in over $35 million a year, and Trey Hendrickson sees his production eclipsing theirs, you've got a contract standoff brewing. There's been talk, some insiders suggesting a 2-year $76 million extension might make sense. Short term, big money, loaded up with signing bonuses. But here's the problem. Trey doesn't want short term anymore. That's been a sticking point for him. He's not just asking for cash, he wants security. At this stage in his career, he's earned the right to push for something more stable than a 2-year rental. He wants a long-term home in Cincinnati, not just a temporary contract and another round of negotiations 2 seasons from now. And that raises a critical decision for the Bengals. Are they willing to commit long-term to a player who's still performing at a Pro Bowl level, but turning 30 soon? The good news? There's still time. Training camp isn't here yet, but the clock is ticking, and what happens next could either solidify Cincinnati's defensive core for years or leave a major hole in one of the league's most underrated pass rushes. One thing is clear, Hendrickson wants answers, and now, finally, the Bengals are listening. Let's shift focus for a moment to one of the Bengals' newest and most complicated storylines, Shamar Stewart. Now, before the rookie has even stepped on the field for a single snap, contract tension is already casting a shadow, and that's where things start to get frustrating for fans and confusing for outsiders. At the heart of the issue is something called default guarantee language, a clause that many NFL teams build into rookie contracts. It's essentially protection for the team. If a player violates conduct rules or gets suspended, they can void certain guarantees. Teams like the Giants, Cowboys, and Steelers use this regularly, so this isn't a Cincinnati invention. But for the Bengals, this is new territory. Historically, they haven't pushed hard on these legal clauses, but with Stewart, they are. And here's the thing, they're not wrong to do it. Does it make the negotiations slower? Sure. Does it frustrate a talented young player? Absolutely. But in today's NFL, especially with salary cap implications looming, front offices need every ounce of protection they can get. And Stewart? He's not being punished. He's being asked to agree to a clause nearly every rookie in the league signs. There's even talk, though unconfirmed, that Stewart could sit out the season entirely, enter the draft again next year, and walk away from the Bengals before his career even starts. But let's be honest, that would be reckless for both sides. Cincinnati invested a first-round pick. Stewart's dream is to play in the NFL. Both need this to work. Now, here's where it connects to Trey Hendrickson. If the Bengals are starting to build in protective language to rookie deals, it's fair to wonder, will they try the same with veterans? Could this same clause show up in Hendrickson's next contract? That move could set a new precedent in Cincinnati's front office structure. It would signal a shift, a more modern, more cautious approach to contract building. Whether veterans like Hendrickson would accept that is another story entirely. But one thing is certain, the Bengals are evolving. They're not just building a team anymore, they're building a business model. one that protects talent and the team, and how they handle both Hendrickson and Stewart could shape the direction of this franchise for years to come. Let's talk about the next layer in the Trey Hendrickson contract story, a detail that's sparking quiet but important conversations inside Bengals leadership: void clauses tied to off-field conduct. Now, before anyone jumps to conclusions, let's be clear. Trey Hendrickson doesn't have off-field issues. No legal trouble. No locker room drama. He's exactly the kind of veteran presence any team wants. So, why would the Bengals consider adding protective language in his contract? Because Cincinnati is changing how it does business. Historically, the Bengals avoided guaranteeing money beyond year one, but those days are gone. They changed that with Joe Burrow, and they'll likely do the same with T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. If Hendrickson signs an extension that includes more long-term guarantees, it's only logical the Bengals would also want language to protect themselves from non-football incidents. And Hendrickson, he probably wouldn't object. He's shown nothing but professionalism on and off the field. This type of clause isn't an accusation, it's a safeguard, and most players around the league are already used to it. Even stars like Saquon Barkley have accepted similar terms. But it's where this ties back to rookie Shamar Stewart that things get complicated again. Some are wondering if the Bengals could restructure how Stewart receives his signing bonus, maybe give it all up front or 75% early as a gesture of goodwill. Other rookies have signed deals with staggered payments, and while it doesn't change how much money is paid, it does affect when it's paid. Could that help settle this? Maybe. But let's be honest. Unless the Bengals remove that protective clause entirely, Stewart probably isn't signing anytime soon. Which brings us to the real risk. What happens if training camp begins with both Hendrickson and Stewart still unsigned or unhappy? That would be a major red flag. You don't want a locker room missing one of its leaders and a top draft pick during critical prep weeks. The Bengals must prioritize locking down Hendrickson, get their defensive anchor secured, then figure out how to navigate the rookie standoff. Cincinnati's window to contend is wide open, but keeping it open depends on getting these crucial deals done the right way: smart, fast, and drama-free.